on average, studies show that the average human has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And you may have heard that. 80% of them have been shown to be negative. That is a lot of negative thoughts every single day that we're having. And 95% of them they say are on repeat, which means we're having them again. My favorite is like, I'm so tired. I'm just tired. I think that I don't even know how many times a day. The thoughts of, I can't manage this. This is too much. These coaches I can't stand. Why are they getting to me on a Thursday for a Friday game? Like that, all of those negative thoughts are normal and they're human, but they create so much extra negative feeling amongst us, right? Like when we're spinning in those thoughts over and over, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is too much. This is driving me crazy. Why are these coaches such a mess? Like we get ourselves worked up, and those thoughts aren't actually helping us or serving us. And so I don't know how often you're caught in that. And I don't mean to call you out. Like we have thoughts about things all the time. Like I'm not good enough at my job. I'm not going to put myself out there because on that project because I'm not good enough. Right. Like we have constant negative thoughts, no matter what area of life we're thinking about. But those thoughts generally don't serve us because our thoughts drive our actions and our actions drive our results. So if we're having thoughts of, I can't handle this, I'm not good enough at work, I'm too tired to do this, I had a bad day, so I'm not going to exercise today. Like all of those thoughts keep us from taking the actions. Like those thoughts are really ruling our lives and we don't even realize it. It's almost like they're the engine driving the car. I talk about getting in the driver's seat. It's fine to be in the driver's seat, but if they're the engine driving it or they're steering it and we're not even paying attention to them, because half of them are conscious, subconscious, partially conscious. Like we don't even realize, we just think them and we subconsciously, consciously believe them. So if you say that thought of, I'm too tired to exercise or make a meal, you believe that right away. And then you do your action, which is to order takeout or sit on the couch instead of exercise. Like, so we don't question those thoughts. And those thoughts are, like I said, we want to be in charge of our lives. We don't want our thoughts to be in charge of our lives without us even thinking about it. And those negative thoughts in general, like when I talked about, driving the car towards your dream, road tripping to California or whatever your dream is, those thoughts tend to deter us, right? So if your dream is to get healthier, and I'm just going to make it up, which is maybe to eat more vegetables, higher protein, less junk food, and exercise more, some version of that. If those thoughts are keeping you away from that, then you're never going to have the result. The thoughts drive the actions, actions drive the results. You're never going to have the results you want. And so we really need to start paying attention to what our mind is telling us, so that we're not just reacting to our lives by our thoughts instead of us really driving. And so I want you to think about when I coach people and when we coach, and we teach this in the middle school, high school, we actually teach this to CEOs too. We like to put our thoughts into three categories, the negative thoughts, because it's easier if you can say, oh my gosh, that is a fear-based thought. We call it the mouse. Like, oh, that's just the mouse talking or the chicken talking. That's a fear-based thought. Then you can start realizing and catching it more easily versus just 60,000 thoughts with no category. If we put them into three categories, it's easier to catch them. So I want to kind of play with that a little bit. So the first one that I was just talking about is that fear-based thought. Anything that's keeping you small, trying to keep you safe. Sometimes I like to call it the mouse, sometimes the chicken, sometimes the scaredy cat, right? It's the voice that's saying, oh, I can't do this. I can't put myself out there. I'm going to embarrass myself. What if I make a mistake? Those are, those kinds of thoughts that are just keeping us protected and safe, but also keeping us from living a bigger life, and going and doing the things that we might actually dream about, but that might be a little scary. And so, that voice tends to try to make you believe that something's a bad idea, and it could be anything from, I'm not going to say that in our staff meeting or to my boss because she'll just reject it and then I'm going to feel stupid, right? I'm not going to even talk to my husband about this because he's not going to want to talk about it. Right. I'm not going to go for that promotion. I'm not going to take the comedy class. All of these things that if we don't do, we stay small and we stay in our existing lives versus living a little bit happier, a little bit prouder, a little bit dreamier. Can you guys recognize the fear-based thoughts? Can you think of any that you have? Some people have them in different areas than other people. We all have them. Like we all have fear-based thoughts, but some might have fewer than others. Like I am a very fear-based person. Like I actually would say that the fear-based thoughts have ruled my life for most of my time. We do tend to have them in specific areas. So mine tended to be at work. I had way more in work than I ever did in other areas. A lot of my life clients who are parents and single and dating, there's a lot of, oh, I can't spend that much time. I can't go out on a weeknight.
Yeah.
I can't take time away from my kids. And it really is a fear-based thought every single time when we drive down to the bottom of it, it's a fear of being a bad mother, of actually going out on a date. Like there's a lot of different fear in there. Sometimes we're afraid to even try something because God forbid we fail. And I have a client right now who, she was just saying she is really trying to lose weight. And she's been trying for years, but we're doing it differently now that we've started to work together. And she had so much fear of failing one more time that she wasn't trying. Right. Because she's like, if I pay you, Casey, to help me with this and I still fail, then that's a total disaster. They waste money on this too. Here's the next one. This one I find fun, but the next category of negative voices is sort of like that inner bratty voice. It's almost, I mean, we all have kids, so it's like that toddler that's tantruming because she doesn't want to get out of the pool. Like, I don't want to get out of the pool, or I want a popsicle right now. Like, I don't want to get in the bath. It's that, you guys have all had a tantruming toddler or a bratty, moment with your kids. It's sort of that I don't want to, I deserve, I want to do it later. I don't want to do it now, or I want something now. So it's like, I'll exercise after I watch one more Netflix show. Right. Oh, I'm exhausted. So I'm just gonna eat junk because like we said before, I don't have enough energy to cook. I deserve. And it's sort of that bratty, tantruming voice that comes in. And it comes in a lot with health and body and food. It comes in a lot with money for people. Like, oh, I'm just going to spend money I'm going to I deserve, or, about either spending or having things. It can come into other areas of life too. Where if your dream is actually health and it's to get a good night's sleep and it's to be patient with your kids, which usually comes after a better night's sleep, if you have these dreams of showing up a certain way in your life and going to bed at a certain time and taking care of yourself and your well-being is one of those, then that's the bratty toddler voice that's keeping you from the dream. Because staying up until 1 binge watching a show is really, really fun, but it's keeping you from being patient with your kids, getting up in the morning and exercising, all those things that you want to do. And it can come with our kids too, right? And in a little bit of what we were talking about before is like, I don't want to drive them, right? I don't want to be up late. So my daughter 3 nights a week has practice until 9:30, a half an hour away. And again, I'm not driving every night, we're carpooling, but the nights I'm carpooling, I don't get home till almost 10:20 or 10:30 because by the time I get everybody home. And there are so many nights where I'm like, I don't want to be up until 10:30. Like, I don't want to do that. But if I stay in that resistant state of, I can't stand this, why does she have practice so late? I like to go to bed at 9:30, not 10:30, all these, that resistant state, then I am making myself unhappy because that practice isn't going to change. I've allowed her to join the team. She loves the team. And so none of that is going to change. I can't change the time of the practice, the location of the practice. I can't change that she loves basketball and wants to play on this team. So I can either choose to go with it and have more positive thoughts about it, or I can choose to be in a resistant, unhappy state every Thursday night. This isn't going to last forever. I'm going to go with this. And that's what we're trying to do, is choose thoughts that serve us. So for instance, when I drive the basketball, what I've decided, I've designed it. I got in the driver's seat and I've designed it that I have certain friends that I call while I'm sitting outside in the cold in the car for an hour and a half of practice because it's too far away to drive back home.
Mhm.
Friends on the West Coast who I am suddenly
Mhm.
in great touch with because I text them and say, "Are you available?" I have other things that like I get done. I'm very organized about bringing stuff in the car. Now I take it as more of an opportunity. It's still not ideal, but I'm trying to make it as best as possible.
Yeah.
So the third voice, and this one I think is super fun too, when you catch it, we call the observer. And that is it's observing and reporting. It's like the observer or the reporter. It's observing and reporting on your life as if you're powerless and have no control. So sometimes we'll call it like a weather reporter instead of a reporter, because and I like this analogy with kids if you're, I don't know if anybody watches the weather anymore on TV, but I think we're all old enough to have seen a weather reporter. They are standing up there and they're saying it is going to be 85 degrees in Austin, Texas today. They have no ability to change that to 70 or to 90. They are just reporting on it. They have zero power. And that's the voice that we sometimes have in our head of powerlessness, like no control. So, I had a client just say to me, it is impossible to save money because the city I live in is so expensive. It's impossible to save money. That is a voice of powerlessness, as if they have no ability to somehow change that, or at least to save money. It's like it almost gives them the excuse to get off the hook of saving money. I had another client this week say, I'm too old to change careers, Casey. I'm 62 years old. I'm too old to change careers. Again, powerlessness gets them off the hook from even trying to go design a life that they really, really want. 62 is not too old. Everybody can figure out a way to save some money. One I hear students say that you guys might hear your kids say sometimes, I'm just shy and bad at making friends, or I'm
Mhm.
bad at math,
Yeah.
I'm bad at writing. These blanket statements that kind of give them no power to actually go get better at math. And what I'll say to the kids, because I really do hear I'm bad at making friends or I'm shy all the time, they can actually learn to go make friends. Like that's a skill. Some people are more extroverted and more comfortable at it, but they can still have a promise to reach out to and say hi to one person a day and start to get more comfortable at it and better at it. And so we can start believing different things about ourselves. But if they believe I'm bad at making friends, again, these thoughts drive our actions and our results. They will never go reach out to anybody because they think they're terrible at it. Or if they think they're terrible at math, are they
Mhm.
really going to study
Mhm.
hard for a test if they don't think they can make it? Or if you think you're too old to change careers, are you actually going to go do something about it, take an action towards it? No. So these thoughts are really the thoughts of powerlessness are just keeping us from our dream. But there's often, still something we can do. So the city might be too expensive that my client like lives in. Maybe it really is an expensive city, but there are still choices that can be made to try to save some money. Some are probably coming from an emotionally reactive brain, right? So when we get out of the thinking brain and into the emotionally reactive brain, which is when we're in a stress mode or a fear mode or something like that, then some of those thoughts are coming from there, right? And so those are when we don't make as good decisions because we're making them out of panic or fear. And so I think the fear-based thoughts, not necessarily all the ones I said, but some of our decisions and thoughts really can be from just that emotionally reactive part of the brain. What I will say in addition to that, some of these really, like Jenny started to just say, come from our belief systems. And so those are, I don't know where those are in the brain, but they're embedded in our operating system where we really believe, I had a belief at one point that I was bad with money. So my parents were truly bad with money. I exhibited a lot of bad behaviors with money of just not ever choosing to learn how to manage it well when I was in my 20s. And I was afraid to ask for money. So, I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through college. I had all these student loans, yet I wasn't doing anything to grow up about it. And
Mhm.
so I just believed that I was bad at money. So then what happened is it would be time for me to get a review. Would I ask for a promotion or a raise? No, because I didn't actually believe that
Mhm.
I was good with money or worth money or that I needed money. I mean, I knew I needed money, but I couldn't figure out how to actually be a
Mhm.
grown up with it. And so it's that belief system about myself really permeated a bunch of areas of my life until I decided to break that down. And when I started to believe, okay, wait, I can be a grown up with money. I can learn to save, I can learn to make some, I can
Mhm.
learn all these things, right? And I think part of my belief about not being good with money was that I shouldn't prioritize money because that was also the way we grew up. Right.
Mhm.
We didn't need to have money. People who had money weren't good. I really believe that it is bad to ask for money or it's bad to want money. Are you ever going to ask for a raise? No. And so that's an example of where some of those thoughts come from the belief systems that we have. The idea that we're having 60,000 thoughts a day for us to recognize which ones are real, which ones are serving us, which ones we should talk back to is really difficult. It is easier when you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just being bratty. I'm being like my tantruming toddler, or I'm just being a chicken,
Yeah.
right? Like it's easier to kind of say that, like, I'm just reporting on my life like I have no power. It's just easier to connect to them. And then we are more likely to flip it, choose a different thought that serves us better when we can catch ourselves in them. So until you start to pay attention to these thoughts, catch them and change them, it's really hard to change your life because your thoughts drive your actions, which drive your results. So unless you change your thoughts, the chances of you getting off the couch and exercising, if you're having the same thoughts, I deserve it, my life is hard, I'm too tired, like you're never going to change your actions or your results if you don't change your thoughts. And it's why we can't get happier, prouder until we change those thoughts. But it's deep work. Like we really have to do the work. And, it's not a quick job, right? We have had the same kinds of thought patterns in my case, I'm about to turn 50, right? 54 years. I've had the same thought patterns. And because we're all human, we all have these patterns. And so for us to make that conscious choice to choose differently actually takes some work. But it's so much easier for me than it was 10 years ago because I've been doing the work over and over again to say no. And that's actually what I want to say next. So like what I would love to leave you guys with in our last 10 minutes is what kind of promises would you like to commit to yourself, to do over the next month that would make you feel that you're a calmer parent or you're committing to your health or you're managing your time? Like what are the specific and measurable actions that you want to take that will get you some of those results that we're looking for? And then I want you to think about the thoughts that you're going to have those. So that's the exercise I'd love to do with you guys right now. So if you're thinking about you needing to extricate yourself from other things so you can focus on your priorities, then you probably need a promise to say, I'm just making this up, this could be wrong, but to say no 3 times a week, right? To get yourself out of things. So then you're going to have to think about what are the thoughts that I have when I feel like I need to say yes? Is it, I can't say no? They need me. Nobody else can do it as well as I can. It's not that we don't know what action to take. It's not that we don't know what result we want. It's that we believe the negative thoughts that don't serve the dream. I don't know if you've ever heard the story about habit building, about the guy. Have you heard the story about that he just had to put his shoes on to start?
Mhm.
And he had to, well, I'll tell it really quickly because we only have 3 minutes, but it is exactly the concept of you need to start small and doable. And it needs to be a
Yeah.
stretch from what you're doing now. So if you're not even putting your sneakers on, great. Put the sneakers on at the same time that you want to go to the gym those 3 days. And then a week later, after you put the sneakers on, get in the car and drive to the gym. You don't even have to, like, this is what this guy did. He lost 100 pounds, and it's a true story, but he started by just putting his sneakers on for a week. Then the next thing he did was drive to the gym and back for a week. Then he'd
Wow.
walk into the gym, and then that took another couple weeks. Then he would
Wow.
do 5 minutes but he just had to add like a 2 to 5 minute every couple weeks, and he lost 100 pounds. But had he
Wow.
started trying to go to the gym 5 days a week for an hour, he probably would have failed, you know? And that's actually, that whole story is in a book called Atomic Habits about habit building, how you really should just do something that you're not doing, but really, really doable. In our last minute, I just want you guys to think about, and you can do this as you leave or when you get home, but what would be the doable, but a little bit bigger than you're doing now, actions that you could take this week to just make you happier in your health, your parenting, your time? Think about what those are and then start to try to catch yourself in your thoughts of getting out of them. That would be your homework for coming to next class. I would love to hear, what actions did you take? What were the voices that tried to get you out of them, and how did you handle it?